I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Welcome back to News du Jour. If you're new here, I just wanted to start off with a disclaimer real quick that we promise to be a calmer space to consume the news. But that's not to say that bad stuff doesn't happen. And when it does, we're going to be here to tell you about it, acknowledge its seriousness. However, we believe there is a lot more than doom and gloom going on in the world, and we will report on a range of different topics from entertainment to business to politics, fashion and art, and more. Whatever the top 3 stories of the day are what you'll hear on here. We're excited to have you here. Today we're starting off with a little COVID update. So there are a couple different things to update you guys on that are new this week. So scientists are still studying the manner of transmission with the coronavirus, and there's still a lot we don't know. Early studies seem to have indicated that the virus could stay alive for up to 48 hours on surfaces, think like doorknobs, packages, groceries, etc. But studies have now shown that are a lot more in-depth, have shown that unless you immediately put someone else's bodily fluid in your mouth or your eyes, it's not going to last on surfaces. And this means that the main way the virus is spreading is person-to-person contact and potentially going airborne as well in more humid climates. But again, this is all being studied very carefully because the rate of transmission is so much higher with COVID. We also hit 2 very unfortunate milestones this week. Unfortunately, we have more than 40 million people filing for unemployment in the United States, and that's basically 1 out of 4 workers in the U.S. So really unfortunate statistic, but there is kind of speculation that that we're overcounting and that we're undercounting. So it's on a state-by-state basis, and they're doing the best they can to keep track of the joblessness, but it's hard. And that's why whenever I hear people comparing it to like the Great Depression, I get a little bit nervous because I'm like, okay, well, it's hard to track it now with all the technology we have. Back then, it was nearly impossible. So it's hard to kind of compare the rates, but we're pretty sure these are setting some records. Even worse, we have now broken the 100,000 death threshold from the coronavirus, and there are roughly 2,000 new cases popping up daily. Luckily, that number has stayed pretty flat. It's been about 20,000 new cases a day for a while. So obviously, those who are in more densely populated areas are more at risk. We know that, New York City, again, if you're thinking person-to-person contact, just the more populated a place is, the faster it's going to transmit. So anyway, on to some happier news. Who is baby Ash, you ask? Well, let me give you some hints. He is gray, he is fuzzy, and he is born out of a fire. He's a baby koala, and he is actually the first baby koala to have been born in Australia since the sweeping wildfires took over the forest there. As many of you may already know, koalas are pretty endangered to begin with, but as many as 5,000 have died in the fires, according to the International Fund for Animal Welfare. So that was a huge hit to the population. And those who survived are likely to have been injured or at least traumatized by losing their homes and having to be cared for by humans to survive. They're wild animals after all. But baby Ash gives us hope for the future. She is the cutest, so you guys should totally Google her because it will lift your spirits. And they've been bottle feeding her, which just melted my heart. Before we continue on with our episode, I wanted to give you a quick behind-the-scenes look at how I produce my podcast. So I actually use and love Ankur, a free tool for podcasters. It's everything you need to create, distribute, and make money from your podcast all in one place. And it has a matching app that makes tracking updates to your following super easy. You can download the free Ankur app or go to anchor.fm, that's ANCHOR.FM today to get started. On to number 3. So the third story for today is the protests in Minneapolis. So, following the news story that we covered yesterday with George Floyd and his murder in the streets by a police officer and 3 onlooking police officers, there have been protests in Minneapolis that have escalated pretty dramatically. There's civil unrest throughout the city. Target is a Minnesota-based company that has been ransacked, and the videos of the Target look closer to a war zone than Minneapolis. I encourage you guys to Google this as well, because it's just something that, I can describe it as best I can, but seeing is believing, and the racks are just empty, like things are shattered and broken, the lights are off. I mean, it's scary. And so we're also seeing a lot of fires. There's been some large fires set in the Midtown area of Minneapolis, and it's unclear really how the fire started, but, further investigating will tell us that. But rubber bullets and flash bombs and whatnot have been used against the protesters by law enforcement. So it's not really helping the situation. But the Minneapolis mayor has actually spoke out calling for the arrest of the 4 police officers that were involved in the murder. So hopefully we will see some movement in this case soon. And that is the news du jour. And I wanted to leave you with a quote like we talked about in the last episode. So the quote I want to tell you guys about today is, "You can't be hungry if you've been fed." And the reason that I love this quote is because it basically, if you have all your needs met, you're not going to be out there fighting for something better. So when you are faced with adversity, remind yourself it's making you fight for a better life, and it's all the hardships that we are going through right now are making us stronger and better and reach for what we want, because you can't be hungry if you've been fed. So I hope that motivates you guys going into your Friday so you can finish the week out strong. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen on. A rate and review would also mean the world to us, and it will help us keep creating the news du jour for free for you guys. You can also follow us on Instagram under sugarfreemedia.co, and on all major social media platforms, we are under Sugarfree Media. And that's the news du jour, and I hope you guys will tune in again on Monday. Thanks for listening. One more quick little side note. If you heard twinkling sounds in the background while I was talking, that is my little rescue dog. For those of you who don't know about Rhett, he kind of has some separation anxiety for me, so he's always going to be recording with me right at my feet, and if you hear him jingling, it's just him shaking his collar. So if you're interested in learning more about Rhett, I have a blog post about his rescue story up on the blog, as well as an entire stories highlight for him on Instagram, so go check those out. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.